We're going to go further in the Nefesh Hachaim and finish Parak Yud Dalet. My introduction to this last few paragraphs of Parak Yud Dalet is that I can't say that I fully understand it, but together we'll try to understand it. And what he's talking about here is the spiritual biology, if you will, of a person. And we know that a person, what was identified by Chazal, is machshava, dibur, and maisa. That's an interesting breakdown. I don't know if there's such a secular breakdown. Machshava, what a person thinks, dibur, what a person says, maisa, what a person does. Good breakdown. Machshava, dibur, and maisa. Chazal speak a lot about this, and they also speak about the physical aspect of it. The machshava is obviously in the mind. Machshava, brain cells, moach, machshava. Moach, the word moach comes from the word machshava. It's the same word. Maisa is not talking about what I do and what I don't do. Take the opposite end of the spectrum. Maisa is talking about what I am physically. Like it possibly could show up on an X-ray or on a calcium score machine or an MRI or something like that. It's the world of Maisa is not talking about what I do, what I don't do, because what I do and what I don't do is a matter of choice. There's where I'm choosing between all the different elements within me. But what are my, to put it in yeshivish words, what are my lamaisa? Like, what are my lamaisa? Like something that would sort of show up on a blood test. And then dibur, I'm going out of order, seems to be something in between, but it has to do with how do I express myself. So machshava, dibur, and maisa. Chazal speak about, it's interesting, they speak about the machshavas in the mind. Dibur has to do with the lave, with the heart. And the Vilna speaks about this a lot at the beginning of Mishlei. And what I am physically has to do with my kaved. Because a kaved is kulei dam. Right? It says in Yeridea that a kaved is kulei dam. That's why you can't do malicha on a kaved. Kaved is kulei dam. So I'm just grappling to put this into terms that I can understand, and that is that there is something called, which I think biologists and physicists and ethicists speak about, and that is like, what is life? Like what does it mean to be alive? And try to identify something which is called the life force within the person. So it's very, very Dakistic. What's called alive. Now there are halachic definitions of what's called alive, and it's very interesting that there's two halachic definitions which come from two different places. One halachic definition is if you have a pulse. If you have a pulse, then you're alive. What does it mean to have a pulse? It means your heart is beating, it means your blood is circulating. So if your dam is all standing in one place, and it's not circulating, then you're not really alive. Another halachic definition, which I don't think is used scientifically, is are you breathing? So halachically, if you want to know if somebody's alive or not alive, so you check their heart, but you also put a feather in front of their nose and see if the feather moves, because breathing seems to be a definition of life. Now scientists have come up with all kinds of other definitions for life, but the fact is, they talk about quality of life, which is certainly not our issue. But what we're talking about is life itself. When do you pronounce somebody dead? When do you pronounce somebody alive? Like what does that actually mean? And what it has to do with is this very esoteric idea of life force, which I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I don't know if scientists are able to understand what the life force is. But what's the difference? I mean, we're not plugged in. It's not like we blow a fuse or something, or somebody shuts off a switch, and we're not alive. We're not robots. We're not machines. The difference between life and death is very, now we know trauma can kill us, but we know non-trauma could also, life could just end. Life could end unexpectedly. So what is this life force? So that's like a very general question. So the what the Torah increasingly does is talks about dam. Dam is the blood. Hadam hu hanefesh. So it's a pasuk. Ki nefesh ha'adam b'dam hi. That's what it says in Devarim. Ki nefesh ha'adam b'dam hi. What is nefesh? Nefesh is really what we need to understand. So again, let's review some of what we learned. And we have nefesh, ruach, neshama. So right now, let's just spend a few minutes on nefesh. Nefesh should be the easiest thing for us to understand, but it's really to me, it's like the most complicated. Meaning, like, okay, if you tell me I have a neshama, I believe. Nefesh is the actual life force of a person. Life force. I just want to introduce that concept here. Not that I'm alive. What is the life force? So the answer is, that's my nefesh. You see, people think when you that the difference between life and death is Yitzias HaNeshama. It's called Yitzias HaNeshama. It's not true, because the neshama doesn't die. The neshama stays. The neshama was here before us. The neshama is here afterwards. It's just with us while we're alive. So Yitzias HaNeshama. It's true that there is Yitzias HaNeshama when a person dies, but that's not the definition of death. Am I talking in circles? Does everybody understand me? Like, it's true that in order to hold the neshama like a wick holds a fire, you have to be alive. Neshamas don't hang around dead people. There is such a thing, maybe, but Pashta says there's Yitzias HaNeshama. But that is not the definition of life and death, having a neshama or not having a neshama. Let's say a plant dies. I don't know if it has a neshama as we know it anyways, or even an animal. I don't know if it has a neshama per se. But it is alive or dead. There's a different thing called it. So that's all. What has to do is, what the correct way to say this is Yitzias HaNefesh. Right? Ritzachai nefesh. A person murders a nefesh, right? Nefesh. Nefesh is the part that's alive. Nefesh is the part that's killed. So when we focus on nefesh, we're talking about, in my estimation, the life force of a person, which the Torah identifies with dam. Ki hadam hu hanefesh. Hence, all of the 8 times it is asserti dam ki hadam hu hanefesh. Ki nefesh ha'adam bedam hu. 2 psukim, 1 in Vayikra, 1 in Devarim. That dam somehow is a nefesh. But again, it's not talking about dam as in, you'll excuse me, a cup of blood. There's no nefesh there. It's talking about the dam which is circulating, the dam which is feeding and giving sustenance to every different part of my body. You realize biologically, everybody knows, that in order for every part of your body to be nourished, the blood has to circulate to that place. If the blood doesn't circulate to that place, then it becomes an aver mace, right? If a person is in bad shape, let's say, and the blood can't get to the small capillaries, blood vessels, so then, God forbid, there's a heart attack, there's leg amputations, there's stroke, glaucoma. All of those things are matters of the blood not being able to reach to the furthest places. That's what's going on in the body. Generally, a person doesn't die of a stroke. You might die of a stroke, but a stroke is a symptom of the blood not being able to nourish that type of a place. Incidentally, totally out of what we're talking about here. That's what diabetes is. Diabetes is not. You don't die of diabetes. You have complications from diabetes, because what happens when a person is diabetic, something I know a little bit about, is it's like spilling orange juice on the table, waiting 10 minutes and feel its consistency. So for whatever reason, your blood becomes full of sugar because it's not going where it's supposed to be going, and then it can't get into the brain and into the lungs and into the eyes, and hence all the complications of untreated or unmanaged diabetes. So what you're talking about is really something which is the life force within a person not working, at least not working to the extremities. Maybe it's working at a basic place, but it's not working in the extremities. So you have all kinds of, you can have, God forbid, all kinds of tsaras. Thank God, very, very manageable. We know how to do that these days. but that's what we're talking about when we're talking about nefesh. So let's read a little bit of the Nefesh Hachaim, and I want to explain a little bit more. Ad makom sheyodi magas, to understand life force. It's really very difficult to speak about the ethics of life and death, which is the most ethical question in the world, without understanding this. And I don't believe that scientists do understand it, because once you start talking about quality of life, obviously you're not getting it. I always, just as a backdrop, and I've told the story before, but I often repeat the story that Reb Bleich told me. Reb Bleich he's one of the Reshivas of YU, very big posek in New York. He's a Rav of a shul, posek in New York, wrote many books called Contemporary Halachic. So he's very, very against any type of euthanasia. To an extreme degree, I would say, more so than, let's say, his colleagues of Tendler or other people that have talked about this. But he tells a story. I heard him tell the story of his mother in her later years was in the hospital in East New York. He lives in Upper East Side of New York. She was in the hospital in Eastern New York, or which hospital, and she was old lady and basically in a coma, non-responsive for months and months and months. And the doctors were always pressuring him to, that this is a waste of resources and this is not called life. And he always fought against it. It's very hard. It's very hard when you're under the pressure of doctors and people telling you you're taking away other people's lives. It's a very difficult situation to be in. It's very difficult. It's a big decision to know what's right, and you got to really hook up with a Rav who knows what's right, But anyways, they were pressuring him. He was resisting the pressure because he holds Allah. He's very anti. And one of the things that he said he used to do is that after shul on Friday night, he would always go to the hospital and go visit his mother, who was non-responsive, but he would visit his mother. It's his mother, and he would always make kiddush for her. That's what he did. He would make kiddush for her, and he did this for, I believe, a couple of years. Made kiddush, and he said that now this is a very rational type of a rabbi. He's not like, but he made kiddush for her one Friday night, and his mother sat up in bed and she said, "Amen, good Shabbos," lay down and died, and. He always speaks about that, that she died being Mekadosh HaShabbos. She died being Mekadosh HaShabbos, but who knows what's going on inside of a person? Who knows what's going on inside the neshama? Who knows what's awake and what's not awake? So it doesn't necessarily show up on an X-ray. That's the point I'm trying to make. It doesn't necessarily, show up as this is something which, this is life, this isn't life. Who's going to paskin that? Who's going to paskin if a person has simcha in their heart? Who's going to paskin if a person has hirurei tshuva in their heart? Who could know that? Who knows b'chlal what's going on? In these issues. Forgive my tangent, but it's important for everybody our age to understand. But when my own father always was a question of putting a feeding tube in him, and it was it's a question. The doctors are not so for it, and all kinds of things, and Rav Yaakov traditionally held that you're not meant to put a feeding tube in somebody who's dying. So David Green made a bris for one of your sons. Reb Berkowitz was there. Who was it?
Ari's son.
Yeah. So I was sitting next to Reb Berkowitz when, just as my father was at the end of his life. And I said to Reb Berkowitz, I said, like people ask me these shilas all the time, and I really don't, I know what to say to them, I don't know what to say to myself. Like, what's the, put a feeding tube, not put a feeding tube? So he humbly said that when his father was very sick, he also didn't know what to do. That was nice, made me feel good. But I'm sure he knows what to do. He said, let me tell you a very interesting thing. Rav Yaakov, this is what he told me. Rav Yaakov always held that don't put a feeding tube in a person who's dying, because he's a gosses. You're not supposed to do anything invasive with a gosses. You might be mamaher misasa. You're not supposed to do that. And that's what he paskined for many, many years. There was one person who he paskined like that. That's how I know the person survived. He was dying, but he survived. And he came to see Rav Yashiv, and he said to Rav Yashiv that, I know you're the Gadol Ador, but I believe you're making a mistake. Because I heard this discussion as to whether you should put a feeding tube in me or not. I heard the discussion. What?
While he was a goyis.
While he was a goyis unconscious, I heard the discussion, and I was in such pain, in such Shaar, needing food. My body needed food, and you're deciding here not to give me any food, to deprive me of food. So he says, I'm telling you, this is what I was going through, and he says, I think you should reconsider the psak as somebody who's been there. And Rabbi Yashiv changed his psak.
Wow.
That's what Berkowitz told me. That's your bris. Not your bris, but your grandson. But the point is, what is, we're too quick to paskin with people's lives. We're too quick to it's such an important thing to understand, that there's such a thing as the Nefesh Adam, and the simonim that Chazal gave with great trepidation as to what is the not just the meaning of life, but the definition of life, is a very, very complex and very, very difficult. So it's not just, see if he's breathing, and others say, we'll see if there's brain waves. No, it's not that. It's see if he's breathing, because vayipach ba'apav nishmas chaim. And if a person's not breathing, there's no possibility of circulation within the person. If you understand the biology, it's the breathing which creates the circulation within a person. So it's all about dam. And it's all about the life force within a person. And is it there, or is he not there? That's something which Chazal obviously have dealt with for thousands of years. This is not something new. There's nothing to add with MRIs and with brainwaves. There's nothing to add, because because you have to understand the definition of life, not the definition of the machine and how valuable it is as a resource to be able to have, quote, a better quality of life. Talk about life. So
are we saying that the nefesh is the more physical part of the body, and the neshama is therefore the...
What are we saying? So we're saying as follows. Let's first read it here. Chaim has a chart. Nefesh, Ruach. Yeah, give out a little bit so we could see good, especially to me.
Where's the reading? Yudalit?
I'm reading Yudalit, the last few paragraphs. If you have the same book I have, it's page Memtes.
Sorry, the last few paragraphs of Yudalit.
Of Yudalit, Shaar Aleph, Perek Yudalit. Now, again, we did this, Chaim did this well. You have what we're talking about now. This is like really what we're talking about. You have the machshava, which is in your mind, yeah? Dibur and Maisa. Now, Maisa doesn't mean what you do. Again, I want to repeat it. It means what you are, L'maisa, Tachlis. You have also parallel Neshama, Ruach, Nefesh, which goes in parallel. The chart is correct, right? So Machshava is Keneged Neshama, Dibur is Keneged Ruach, we understand, Dibur, Ruach, and Maisa is Keneged Nefesh. We're trying to understand Nefesh right now. So now that we know Maisa is parallel to Nefesh, so we stop thinking about whether you can do something or you can't do something. Nefesh means, do I have a Nefesh right now or not? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us a Nefesh. Again, let's read. HaMaisa hui bebechinas HaNefesh. So Maisa goes with Nefesh. VaHaNefesh asher tasa HaNefesh shoysa oises v'harba ki oitse. Ki Adam hu HaNefesh, Dvarim Yud Beis. ShaNefesh shoyre umislabesh b'dam ha'adam. Nefesh hides in the blood system. Simple as that. It's not a sign of life, that is life. Adam hu nefesh, or the pasuk that he's bringing over here, Adam hu nefesh. Okay, it's a different pasuk which says nefesh adam adamu. Nefesh shore umislabesh b'dam ha'adam. Let's be medayik for a second. Shore umislabesh. It's two different things. What does shore mean?
That's where it sits.
Well,
The seat of the nefesh is the dam. Shora means what?
Well, to exist.
Shora, what does the word mean?
Oh, permeates.
So,
You think?
I know. It's like-
Shora? Hashras Hashchina.
Reside.
What does that mean?
If you soak, that shows us to soak something.
Shora is to soak something, very good.
It's what?
To soak something. Hashora is hadyoy, it's a Mishnah of Shabbos, right? Hashora is hadrashriya. So you put something b'toich davar, and the thing inside that you put in accepts the properties of that which it's around it. That's what shriya is, right?
Like absorption?
Absorption is a process, but shora means that you're soaking. If you're soaking wool inside of dye, thank you. That must also be related. Dye, inside of dye. So now there's an absorption, as you say, but the properties of the dye go into the properties of the wool, and they become homogenized as such, right? So that's what shora means. Hashras hashchina means what, Imkain? Hashras hashchina.
the Shekhinah takes on the properties of the thing that it's...
Or we take on the properties of the Shekhinah. Meaning that there's Hashras Hashchina in this world, so we become, the world becomes more godly.
Who are soaking it in?
Hashras Hashchina, what's soaking in what?
We are
What,
soaking it
we are soaking in the Shekhinah, or the Shekhinah soaking in
No,
us?
we are soaking the Shekhinah.
You sure?
Ashraz is a hifel, it's cooling.
That's why I said that.
So what's soaking in what?
So we feel like there's something the Shekhinah is soaking into us. Like we're
Okay, interesting, right? Hanefesh Shora B'dam Ha'adam.
Sorry.
The nefesh is soaking in the dam.
Which way did we go with that?
I don't know, we're going to find out in a minute.
Stay tuned.
But I just want to point out the Hebrew. Hashras Hashchina. I don't know if anybody thinks about it. Hashras Hashchina is Lashon Shriya, right?
It says bedam means the nefesh is in the dam itself.
Hanefesh shoyre b'dam ha'adam. So there's nefesh comes from Hashem,
But
and it's soaking in the dam.
into the
That's life force,
into the dam.
right? So the nefesh is, get this, you have dam. Dead people have dam too. But when that dam takes on a nefesh, so the dam is alive, right? So the dam is not onto itself alive. It's interesting. The word for murder in Torah is shvichas domim, even though there's no blood involved.
When somebody dies, it's called negosis, it starts pulling. It doesn't absorb anymore.
Doesn't absorb.
It's pulling the blood to the surface.
Right.
Doesn't absorb anymore.
The person turns white when they die because the blood doesn't circulate. That's why. That's why embarrassment is like killing somebody, because you're doing the same thing biologically. Yeah, for that couple of seconds, like mom is dead, like the blood, it feels horrible, right? To be embarrassed in public, or even not in public. Well, I guess you can't be embarrassed in private. Doesn't make any sense. But you got to be embarrassed from somebody. But the idea of embarrassment is a death sort of idea, because the blood is not circulating. It all has to do with circulation of blood. So better to be mapal atzmei l'kivshin shalesh val tivayish adam chaver barab. That's what it says. It's a bechina. It's not murder, because there's a tchias hamesim afterwards. Hopefully, when you get back to yourself. But whereas death is kind of permanent.
It sounds like, though, that Busha, you first turned red. It's like we're more alive at first, and then
I think what happens is all the blood rushes pools to our head, and then it sort of like stops to circulate, sinks. Yeah.
I mean, fetus by that definition also is alive
Fetus.
because the blood is. They have blood. They have a heartbeat. The blood is sick.
Yes.
Just not allowed to kill people once.
Ki nefesh bin nefesh. It's interesting. If you look in Parshas Noach, it's like a nefesh. Well, the nefesh. So hanefesh shayra umislabesh. Just let's get our Hebrew good. What is mislabesh?
Dress.
Now we know that the nefesh is shayra.
To dress.
Dress.
It's hit.
That's the root. Yeah, mislabesh. You only you're the okay.
Dress itself.
Takes on the appearance, or takes on the clothing of.
So just tell me a sense of mitlabesh.
Lavash der Boker. Lavash der Boker. I dress myself this morning.
I mean, we
No, he's lavash. It's
Mitlabesh.
I dress
We're using a different thing now. Mitlabesh.
myself.
He's mitlabesh be
Normally in Hebrew when you say mitlabesh, you're talking about
He's wearing.
mitlabesh alav, like he's what's the word? He's like cloning himself onto overtaking, yeah, that kind of thing.
That's what it means in modern Hebrew, right?
Modern Hebrew, yeah. Mitlabesh alav is like to take him over, kind of thing.
You mean like control?
No, it's like it's a negative thing in the sense of
Imitate.
like having a go at him or
Uh-huh.
you know,
Dominating.
dominate. Yeah.
So how are you? Your Hebrew is better than mine. Nefesh mitlabesh bedam ha'adam. So you have this nefesh, and it's mitlabesh bedam.
Expresses itself.
Confused.
Manifest itself, it manifests.
Is that what you
That's a
think?
good word.
So it's shora umislabesh.
It sounds like the nefesh is taking on the clothing of the dam, like putting the dam on top of the nefesh. That's what it sounds like.
I'm sorry for being a nunnik. What's the difference between shora and mislabesh? Shora, we said, is that the nefesh soaks in the dam, permeates the dam, let's say. It gives the dam a different character. And mislabesh,
Takes on his clothing, his personality, he takes over.
the nefesh takes over.
It's two, it sounds like it's two,
That's what he's saying. In other words, the nefesh gives personality to the dam.
In the English, over here, the English version, it says the nefesh resides and is clothed within the blood of man. That's how he translates it.
Totally unhelpful. What does that mean? Totally unhelpful.
It sounds like it's a two-way thing. Like Shura is coming down from the nefesh, and then Mislabesh is like the nefesh is taking
It's
something.
my regesh, that there's two opposite ways going. Let's go a little further. I just wanted to point out. V'lachein, therefore, ikar mishkana bakove. We find that the ikar of the nefesh is in the kaveh. We find sukkim like that. Why? Because the kaveh, as we said, is kulei dam. That produces dam. Umerutzas hadam, the circulation of dam, b'chol prate chelke he'evarim klei hamaisa. You see where we're the problem, because we're jumping in a flirtation between our biology and our spirituality. It's complicated. But it's not a mushal. The blood, the life force of a person is where the blood circulates throughout the entire body. B'chol prate chelke evarim klei hamaisa. That's called my maisa. Remember, nefesh is equal with maisa. So that's my maisa. Olam hasiya. Hu noisein lechem chiyus hatznua. Noisein lahem rather chiyus hatznua v'hayisayrus. The ability to move, the ability to think, the ability to shiyuchal lifo v'lasis asher b'koichem. Every aver can do what it's able to do. Why? Because the blood is circulating within it. Strangulation is the lack of circulation. If you will tourniquet any aver in the body and not allow blood to go there, you've just killed an aver. Gangrene sets in. So that's life. What do we in 2 words? Life equals the blood circulation within that person, and that is called nefesh, which is a highly spiritual thing, because you're talking about nothing less than the life force within a person. What makes it work? It's a pella. It's a pella. I just want to share with you this.
So it was actually with the breathing, the Rav said before, the simon was the breathing.
So, why breathing?
Breathing is the dam, so which one is it?
So it's interesting, when God created grass, let's say, grass is alive. So, bidvar Hashem, right? Basar mamaris nivra. When he created animals, he did a b'dibur. Vayomer Hashem. When he created a person, Vayomer Hashem, created us, but then Vayipach ba'apav nishmas chaim. So there's a big difference between God saying something, which is deep work, and blowing within us. Let's think about it for a second. I can speak and breathe at the same time, but I can't blow up a balloon and speak at the same time, because blowing means that I'm giving everything within me right now, I'm putting into this balloon. one has to figure out the wisdom of this. But why would you put your whole life into a balloon? But that's the difference between blowing and talking. Talking is using a part of my lung capacity, and blowing is presumably using all my lung capacity. You ever take that test? Where you got to blow into. If you've ever smoked, you can never pass that test. You have to try to get the thing all the way. The idea of blowing is how alive are you actually? And because Hashem created a person who's very unique, different. He didn't blow into the nostrils of cows or squirrels. He didn't blow into the nostrils of trees. He blew into our nostrils. So we have an aspect of us where this nefesh came to us through the blowing of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So hence the breathing becomes a simon of life also, besides her blood circulation. Yeah.
Why would we use a different definition of nefesh for a human versus an animal? I mean, the Rav switched to a spiritual.
I'm about to explain that.
Okay.
The way I know to explain it is by reading the Tanya. So in the sefer Tanya, the very beginning, everybody probably has read this at some point if you became from. So you have Perek Aleph, Perek Beis. Perek Beis, right here. So in fact, let me read you. The Tanya says as follows, that Perek Aleph says that there's a nefesh. Perek Beis says the nefesh hashenis, two nefeshes. Nefesh hashenis b'Yisrael, he chelak elikai mimal. Moshe Kosav, vayibach ba'apav nishmas chaim. We say in davening, aton nafachta bi. Aton nafachta bi. Moshe Kosav b'Zoyar, and the Zoyar famously says, ma'am de nafach mitoichei nafach. Blowing is something from the very, very depths of a person that you're giving over. This is what Hashem did when He blew into our nostrils. Pirush, mitoichi yusai, umipnimi yusai, shetoichi yosef nimi yos hachiyah shavadam, moitzi bin fichasai b'koyach. So our life force is coming from two places. It's true that the dam is a nefesh, but you can take it deeper and say that our dam is a nefesh. It has another, as he learns it, another nefesh hashenis, another nefesh which is sort of like an onlay onto our nefesh, which cows don't have, and that's the nefesh, what he calls the nefesh elikis. So what he tells us here.
That's not what the nefesh Hachaim is calling ruach. It's a different thing.
Not ruach. We're still holding a nefesh in a way, and what it means is as follows: that you see, so the Balatanya brings from the Mekubalim that there's in nefesh you need to divide it into two: nefesh habahamis and nefesh elikis. You're familiar, but how familiar? Nefesh habahamis sounds bad. It's not bad. Nefesh habahamis is the base life of a person. It's not bad. I don't mean just like physiological. That's nefesh habahamis, like every animal has. In fact, they have it better than we do. Animals see better than we do. They run faster than we do. The nefesh habahamis, our nefesh habahamis is weak compared to the rest of the breed.
That's what we've been talking about all morning, right? Blood flow.
Nefesh habahamis, exactly. Blood flow. Their blood flow is better. We have one stomach. A cow has six. It's where the stomach is there to grind up and turn things into blood.
Ruminants. Ruminants.
Yeah. You see what's going on? Like we're digesting food, and the food gets into our. It's a pella. All this, the biology is a pella. It gets into our stomach. The stomach's a big grinding machine, and grinds everything up, and then it goes through the outer capillaries of the blood throughout the body, and every single aver in the body takes what it needs, the nutrition that it needs. Amazing. That's all Bahamas. It's all nefesh habahamis. It's a wonderful biology lesson, right? We learned it in 9th grade. It's a wonderful system. That's called nefesh habahamis. Nothing wrong with it. Ushmartem es nafshaseichem. V'nishmartem od l'nafshaseichem. You got to watch that nefesh there, if that's what that means. You got to be careful. Yadamu nefesh. But then there's another thing called the nefesh elikis, which is sort of an upgrade, if you will. And that came about through Vayipach Ba'apav Nishmas Chaim. That's a different thing. What?
It's a different ruach neshama. It's still within nefesh.
So it's still within nefesh, but it's called nefesh elikis. And according to the Balatanya, that's also called neshama. So I don't want to confuse everything here, but that's also called neshama. But the thing is that there's something besides for by Nefesh HaBahamis, there's something else. This is Keneged, according to the Tanya, and maybe if we're really sophisticated, we'll see if there's a machlokes between the Baal Tanya and the Nefesh Hachaim, there may be. But according to Baal Tanya anyway, this neficha affects not so much our blood circulation. The blowing of HaKadosh Baruch Hu actually affects our machshava. It's a machshava thing.
So neshama then.
Therefore, according to him, neshama. Remember, we said before that there's moach, machshava, leiv, and kaved. So machshava, let's look at it this way. Machshava is keneged neshama. So, and then you have the leiv, which is the place where everything makes everything circulate, doesn't it? The leiv makes everything circulate. And then you have the kaved, which is the seat of blood, if you will, the makor of dam. Right? If your blood's not working, if your liver doesn't work, so that you have a blood problem, right? It's not working. Now, you see, the Gaon tells us that the Mekubalim call this setup here of machshava, leiv, and kaved melech. It's malchus, melech, machshava, leiv, kaved. Why melech? Because that's the way it's supposed to be. My machshava is supposed to control everything, and it controls my leiv, which controls it, as opposed to. So that there's your nefesh elokis. There's your nefesh. Wherever, where's the liver? Is it here, something like this. So this is under the heart in any case, right?
Yeah, it's under the diaphragm.
Depends on every person. So here's your liver, and you're working in order. So that's the melech. The melech is that my machshava is controlling my leiv, which is calling my kaved, which is very difficult.
And that's how it works biologically. The heart sends a signal to
the mind sends a signal.
Mind sends it in the heart to pump, and because of the pumping, then it can go to the liver.
Tell you something beautiful. That the Gaon brings this out. Pshat and Tosfos. The Gemara says that Bilam wanted to destroy the Jewish people. Yeah. So and the Gemara tells us that he knew how to be mechavein like the exact second of time, whatever this means, kamemra, like a millisecond of time. That HaKadosh Baruch was angry, and he knew if he could get in there, that was his nevuah. That was his nevuah. So he knew he would be able to destroy the people. So Tosfos asked the question, it's like a funny question. He says, what can he say already in that millisecond? Like what's he going to say? So like it takes at least a few seconds to say, destroy the Jewish people. You know, like what kind of a prayer can you put into that millisecond of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's, even if you know how to be mechavein, how do you get in there? So Tosfos says, a teretz. Yishalei bar, he could have said the word kaleim. Destroy them. Kaleim. That's very quick to say. 2 syllables. Kaleim. And that's what Bilam would have said. Tosfos says, I don't know where Tosfos guesses this. He said that's what he could have said. In other words, that's the quickest word of destruction that Tosfos could find. Comes to Vilna Gaon, he says, the pshat is that kaleim is the opposite of melech. Melech is mem, lamed, chav, and kaleim, he says, is when your kaved is controlling your leiv, which is controlling your machshava. Kaleim, that's destruction. This is the Gaon learns in Tosfos that he would have said, look, just turn these people upside down. They should stop being controlled by their nefesh elokis and start being controlled by their liver. And because then they'll act like behemoths and they won't be the choice to switch everything around.
That's what he got us to do, actually.
And that's exactly what he got us to do with the Bnei Midyan, right? It's exactly the Gaon says, exactly what he got us to do. We're thinking with our hormones, right? So like that's what happened. Hello, he goes further. It uses what I believe. Moshe, correct me if I'm wrong. It was an ancient model of medicine or biology, which is probably true also. But and if you look at like the Rambam's medicine, so he talks about the mind controlling everything. It's like a Yuli type of medicine, that everything, like physically, serum flows from the brain through the heart into the liver. Like that's the way, it's an actual, like, it's like an actual way of being. It's an actual way of starting everything with our machshava.
A lot of the glands are in the head and the neck, right? A lot of the hormone glands.
Well, the Rambam's example is the biological example of procreation. So what happens with the ability to create zera within a person, which is certainly a life force, is that it has to start with machshava. So this is true. And then you have to involve the senses. And then finally, in the words of the Rambam, you're creating a zera and you can create a person. But so even if you don't want to use that like ancient model of medicine, it's still the same thing. The mind creates a flow of hormones, and the flow of hormones, and then the touch and sense contribute to that hormonal sense. And then there's zera. Now, of course, this can be used or abused, as we all know. But this is the system. So the Gaon says that if you so many deep things here to say, but if you really understand what a son is, S-O-N, son, B'ni B'choiri Yisrael. So that's my machshava, creating a process which is creating another person, which is creating your machshava. So where a father and a son can bond is in the place of machshava. That's where we can bond. The place where we can bond with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in the place of machshava. And if you look at the chart, machshava, neshama. So the neshama is perforce with the machshava because that's the makor. I hope I'm not making easy things complicated. I'm making complicated things easier. But whatever it is, this is Torah. That Malkim Shiadim Agas. So the machshava, so melech. This is what we need to do: is to be melech. We need to be a melech. A melech is we run our life. We behave according to our machshava. We even go so far higher madrigas to get our machshava to be involved in our emotions. Otherwise, we're daitan kalos. If we just this, by the way, is also true in the Rambam, because the Rambam talks about das. Rambam sefer hamada. The Rambam calls the neshama das. The Rambam was very scientific and very rationalistic in his approach, but he understood that das is the person. After that, and that das, this is the Rambam understood, that das should be controlling the lave. It should be controlling the actual product of the person and even the blood circulation. Everybody knows enough about the techniques. If you had a baby, you do lamaz. If you do yoga, that how the breathing can control the blood circulation and even pain control and things like that. And that can be controlled by your machshava. So the question is, are we in control or are we not in control? Are you a melech or are you acclaimed? That's what Tosfos says. Opposite of a melech. Opposite of I'm just being controlled. Miklam beish, you see. So the being controlled is where we don't want to go. So let's sum it up for today, and then try to even make it more thorough and more simple. On Thursday we'll finish off Perek Yudala. But what we're learning is that in the Baal Tanya asks this, I urge you to take a look in Perek Beis. By the way, it's the right time to mention that Gil had an idea, who's not here, to start like if everybody could do it, like a WhatsApp just between us, and this will make it easier for me, because that way if I see something in a sefer, you can have it right on your phone. It's easy for me to take a picture of it, and you can have it on your phone. So if you have a smartphone, chas v'shalom, you can use it. We can use it l'toiv over here. I think so. Maybe just give Darren a little introduce it. Just give her your phone number. Just make sure we have everything. Better than the emails and better than everything. That's a good thing to do. But again, what we're talking about with the Tanya here is that he very precise in telling us that in the nefesh itself, there's the nefesh habahamis, which is again not a bad thing, but that came from the Devar Hashem, he says. That came from the word of Hashem, which it says in the Torah. And then there was an onlay or an upgrade or whatever you want to call it, which is the nefesh halakis, which came from vayipach ba'apov. And now we have something different. And that can be the neshama, that can be the highest madrega of nefesh, it can be whatever you want to call it. It's almost semantical, because what the idea is that we have the ability to act in a godly fashion. Because now we have God's breath, and man de nafach mitoichei kanafach comes from Hashem's kiviyachol machshava. So we become b'ni b'chari Yisrael. It's the machshava, because that's the way these things work. It comes from a machshava into us. So we're not just a biological creature. We're something different. This is the essence of all spirituality. This is what it means to be, this is what the understanding of what it means to be a Jewish person is, to understand that we're on a different level, not just a biological level of life, but there's a different level of life. Hence, our definition of life is completely different. What are you going to say? That there's no nefesh olikis? As long as the blood is still circulating, as long as there's a pulse, what are you going to say? It becomes very, very complex. Okay, let's leave it there.